Today is about editing my old short stories and talking about my current project at the moment.
I want to be a writer because I like to write. I like to tell stories.
Very, very sophisticated hats. Not really.
It's all about creative writing.
This was more my cup of tea. A little bit of a tight one though. Still, when you get writing, you just gotta do what you can.
Thank you for joining me on my creative writing journey.
My name is James Seviour.
Hello, good evening. So here I am again talking about my recent short stories I've just uploaded. Rather than actually try to teach writing, which I will do in the future, I'm just going to walk through what I'm actually doing at the moment. Last week I started working on The Little Gang, which was a story I had in mind back when I was living in Chile, and it's really just developing into its own thing now. So I've got 3 characters, first perspective, and the stories are really great because I've got a psychological report behind them all. It's really easy to unravel what's going on while the situation is taking place. The different storylines are kind of merging together, which is really, really interesting. So I'm on chapter 3 on this. Every chapter is divided into 3 different perspectives of the 3 characters. So I'm on chapter 3. I want to see if I can get some more done. And also I've just uploaded my horror story, The Devil in the Barbershop, which I wrote while I was living in Chile. Basically one day I went to see my barber and he told me this story about this phantasm just run out of his store. It was quite incredible at the time and I didn't want to believe it. I still don't believe it, obviously, but he went on about he shut the store and we left. But when I wrote the idea on my phone at the time, I thought it would be a good idea for a horror story, and at the time I was taking a short course about writing, and that's where the concept of the horror story took place. When I wrote it in Spanish, it had a different insight than when I rewrote it in English, and rewriting in English was really hard because it's originally supposed to be in a Chilean barbershop, but when I put it to English, you kind of had to adapt it to more of like an English perspective. It was complicated, but in the end, I did it. I never uploaded it, but you know what, because it wasn't well written, but you know, I thought, forget it, I'm just going to rewrite it and upload it. I've got all these short stories which I've wanted to rewrite since I first wrote them, but I never had the chance. I feel embarrassed to put them online. Everyone must get that. The other story I put online was called The Price of Happiness. Now, of course, originally it was called The Price of Loneliness. It was actually a story about a woman who had an issue of growing old, and of course with this she tried very hard to bring her loved ones together when her world was falling apart. This is partially based on a true story, so what I had to do is I had to integrate a lot of what happened into a lot of what obviously may have happened. It's kind of like an interpretation of events that took place. Found it very interesting to see it from the perspective of the older woman who's really trying to do whatever it takes to recapture her youth or be young again, and to what extent she had to go through in order to do so, even to making a pact with the devil. It was kind of complementing my previous attempts at horror and going on into something different. It's fun to write. Again, to have the real life context behind it also made it more interesting because you made it more human. The only thing that's wrong with it, of course, is the writing. It's very much a telling rather than showing. But rewriting it now, I try to add more information, more kind of showing what's going on, but it was too hard because it was already written. And yeah, so unless I went back and rewrote the whole thing, but I just thought, you know, forget it, it's already done, no one's reading it, I'm just gonna edit it and put it online, use Grammarly, check the grammar on it, which took forever. I started this about 5 o'clock this afternoon, and it's just gone about 11 o'clock. It's only 6,000 words, it wasn't that, you know, much, but by taking out some words and changing a lot of the other phrases, it just took so long to edit. But that's been done too, so I put that up on my blog. I hope you get to watch it, get to read it and enjoy it. It's long. They're both horror orientated stories, really, to do with like the supernatural. Again, I'm not a fan of writing about that really. It's fun, but at the same time, it's not my thing. I prefer to write stuff about positive things, adventure stories, things that I'll enjoy reading. This kind of stuff is rather dark, and I'm not a fan of dark fantasy or dark supernatural thrillers, but you have to experiment with all your different genres. You have to own your craft, know exactly what you're working with. There's so many tools out there of what to experiment with that you just need to try it to see what works for you. Although I've got these stories out there, I'm not particularly fond of them happening, not particularly fond of them working for me. So each their own. So these are different ways of actually learning to write. It's just actually writing. So I'm really enjoying writing my novel at the moment, The Little Gang, which will change its name, I believe, in the future. And again, I'm almost out of short stories to upload, which means I better start writing new ones. I had an idea of a new one a while ago. I had a new idea for a new short story a while ago. And keep on writing. Wherever you do not forget, it's all about the time and dedication you put into your activity, which produces the goals that you want in life. And I think that if you get your head down, if you get your fingers typing, and you're doing the best you can, there's nothing more we can ask from you. Get right in. Good luck and good night.